A lot of talk and a lot of participation in the crossover space now. Duke, where are you on these crossover fights that don't seem to be leaving us anytime soon?
I struggle with crossover fights only simply because when you have a 58, 59-year-old Mike Tyson coming out of retirement to get involved with these so-called crossover fights, Tyson's a legend of the sport and shouldn't be doing exhibitions, shouldn't be doing or fighting these YouTube guys. It diminishes the sport. I mean, on one end, it's great for the sport because it brings you a whole new audience to the sport. Yep. However, this new audience of the sport know nothing about the history of the sport. You know, when you talk to young kids now, as I do at my gym, and I say to them, "Who's the best boxer you've seen? Who's the greatest fight that you've ever seen on the TV?" And they say Jake Paul. It brings tears to my eyes. I can't work it out, Simon.
Fair enough.
Spence, it's ridiculous. Listen, from our generation and where we've come from. You know, it's ridiculous.
But that's why they're in the gym, though, because he's bringing that new...
I know. I understand.
What I'm saying is he's hitting an audience that the normal boxers do not hit. So that's the big debate here and the big argument is that, all right, he's called out Mike Tyson. And it was sad to see Mike Tyson, a guy, like you say, that was once the baddest man on the planet. But Jake Paul... You know, the argument here is he good for boxing? Isn't he good for boxing? Is he bringing a new audience to boxing?
But that's fine, and that's part of a debate. But the bigger problem for me, and I don't know what your view on this, Duke, is that he's not only calling out people like Mike Tyson, which we all know gets him eyes on the prize and ultimately gives him some sort of faux credibility. But we've now got it going the other way. We've got Dubois and Beterbiev calling him out. What do you make to that?
Doesn't that tell you, though, just when you're talking about faces of boxing and who's the face of boxing right now, you've got the world heavyweight champ and the guy that's arguably pound for pound #1 in the world at any weight division calling out Jake Paul. So who's the face of boxing at the moment?
It's embarrassing, isn't it?
It is embarrassing, yeah. It is. It's embarrassing that somebody like him can be the face of the sport and he's never had a meaningful fight. Yeah. Now, you know, I was in Memphis, I think it was, for Tyson v. Lewis. And when Lennox Lewis destroyed Mike Tyson...
In Memphis?
This is like 22 years ago. Yeah. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah,
I went... After the fight, everybody went out celebrating after the fight. I went back to my hotel. I was in my bed by 11:30. I couldn't go and celebrate.
Bloody hot, wasn't it?
Oh, God. It was
terribly humid.
It was hot, yeah.
Inside the pyramid,
but the point I'm trying to make, Simon, is that it was such a heartfelt... I was so upset. I was so upset that Mike Tyson had actually been beaten. And 22 years on now...
He's in with Jake Paul.
He's still fighting. He's still...
And I don't know what it tells you.
But this is where it's at with that, Duke, and it's a difficult one. We know the struggles that Mike Tyson's had and, you know, the finances that he's lost. You go like that, and I'll put the question to you. Jake Paul called you out, 3-time world champion, legend of the sport, Duke McKenzie, 20 million quid on the table, mate. You're going to come back and fight Jake Paul?
Oh, no, for 21 million.
You take it.
21.
Of course you would.
Well, anyway,
that's the point. That's the argument.
I mean, Jake's manager, Nikisa Badarian, was on talkSPORT the weekend. Let's see what he had to say.
In terms of Canelo Alvarez, 1,000% that fight is going to happen. Whether it happens this year or next year, that is undoubtedly in the roadmap for Jake Paul.
Nikisa, give me the stipulations of that particular contest, because there's no way that any sanctioning body is going to sanction Canelo Alvarez to fight Jake Paul.
Really?
There's no way that that's going to happen.
Tell me what's the most important sanctioning body in the United States of America. What would you say it is?
I would guess that it's the WBC with you.
No, New York or...
Are you talking about State Athletic Commissions or are you talking...
New York or
Forget
Las
about
Vegas?
sanctioning bodies, irrelevant to the discussion, because Canelo Alvarez...
The commissions.
You're talking... So Nevada.
Exactly. So tell me what fights they've commissioned that are even more lopsided in terms of experience than Canelo.
Mayweather and McGregor for a start.
Listen, that's not what I'm saying.
Exactly. So if they do Mayweather and McGregor, Adam, why would they not do Canelo versus Jake Paul?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that a State Athletic Commission would not allow it, because of course they would allow it.
What were the stipulations of Mayweather and McGregor?
Listen, that's not the argument that I'm making. I'm talking about... You're now making a conversation about the guy that is the main man at 168 pounds in professional boxing, right? In Canelo Alvarez, and obviously he's floated up and down in weight divisions, and he's even maybe thinking about next time challenging
cruiserweight. They've talked about.
Well, okay, whatever, right? But he is an active professional world champion, and we are now talking about fighting a guy, Jake Paul, who is doing fantastic things. Don't get me wrong; he's doing great things, pulling great numbers. But there is a massive level disparity. You've got to admit that.
I'll pack it in. Right, this is ridiculous, and this is delusions of grandeur. You can't put Jake Paul in a ring with Canelo Alvarez. Someone's going to get hurt.
Forget
right?
that. Like, there's a space for what Jake Paul is doing, and yeah, he's developing as a fighter.
Yeah,
but we know what his space is, and we know there's only ever going to be a level there. Canelo is like an active pound for pound star, superstar of boxing. Yeah, forget that. We don't need to see that because it's a non-event.
Tommy Fury versus Darren Till. I mean, we saw a very heated press conference the other day. What do you think of that? I mean, this is the sort of space that Tommy Fury can operate in, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's where, you know, when you're weighing up Tommy Fury and where he's going to fit, like in the boxing world, we've seen where he sort of is like sort of nip and tuck against Jake Paul. You're at a sort of level, so you go southern area, like sort of level.
Yeah, you wouldn't put him like, near Moses
would he even
would
be?
you?
No.
Johnny Fisher, no.
Come on. So you go, that's sort of where he's at, and he can earn good money. It's a good luck to him. Good luck to him. We saw the return of John Fury there as well, didn't we?
I was going to say to you, I mean, is that not a blessing in disguise that he's not running around bashing up little Ukrainians in Saudi rather than dealing with Darren Till?
Well, did he keep his arse in his pants?
Was it going a little bit?
Oh yeah. Listen, I think there's, like I say, that's Tommy Fury, that's where he's at right now. It's actually, him and Darren Till is a good fight, to be fair. When you're talking about levels and where it's at, you go, when you're matching two fighters up like that, that's not a bad fight. Darren Till, who comes from a different discipline, actually can fight a little bit. And I think that, he can fight a little bit. And so that'll be a decent fight.
Yeah, I mean, he did go off on a tangent, didn't he? He said, if I couldn't knock, I'll headbutt you, I'll knee you in the face,
that's when
kick you in the chubs or whatever else
well,
he's going to do.
You're talking about bringing the sport into disrepute then, because you go,
what Tommy
if
said.
It's going against me, I'm going to kick you in the head. You go, well, you've just sort of you've got to be careful what you say there.
Yeah, but that's noise, isn't it? I mean, I like John Fury. I think some of the things he says about boxing are so insightful. I think he's one of the best observers. I used to love watching him before it was TNT, it was BT Sport. And I think he was so intuitive, not as intuitive as people that have fought at world level, but notwithstanding it, having a great understanding of it. What do you make of this kind of behaviour, Duke? I mean, we saw John put himself in a difficult position and everyone else associated by him in the lead up to the Usyk fight. We're now seeing him acting out again with his other son. Do you just think, so what? It's all part of the theatrics, or do you think there's an obligation to behave a little bit better?
I think he's probably got an obligation to behave a bit better.
Yeah.
You know, this is a grown man we're talking about. You know,
but he's falling into that space, right? Where they're at, these two, and fall into this sort of like misfit space. I think it's marketing genius, actually, because it gets everyone talking about it. He's sort of like you say, Simon, he knows what he's talking about. He's a very clever guy, as in, like, he can break down fights. He understands. He's a good analyst. You know, he's been there, seen it, done. And I just think it's marketing genius. With him doing that, falls into that space because this is that crossover thing. It's not real boxing, this.
No, but it's like WWE, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly. You know what I mean?
And that's the world we've got now. Entertainment. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, Jim? We're like dinosaurs, mate. We don't understand it.
But that's quite sad, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
For boxing as a whole, when you've got this so-called crossover, you know, and people listen to these guys and they take everything that they say, they take it all in, and they make it believable. When in reality, it's not. That's not the real sport at its core.
But it's also, I don't know, maybe I'm just being a bit straight-laced about it and a bit buttoned up too tightly, but I also think it's wrong to behave that way in the build-up to a world title fight. In the example of John and the behaviour in Saudi Arabia and all that went with that, I think it diminishes the sport.
Yeah, sure.
And I think the sport needs to be enhanced and promoted in a better fashion. We all know there's trash talking. We all know that it goes on when you're dealing with men that are going to be in very combative and competitive modes. But there is a line, isn't there?
Sure. Listen, some people like the sound of their own voice. Maybe just wants to get on camera and just be out there and be part of it. You know, there was a time when we were fighting, certainly, Spence.
Yeah.
You didn't have a fight week. No. You had a press conference a day before the fight, and then you had a press conference straight after the fight. But now we've got a whole...
That's if it was a big fight, by the way.
That's if it's a world title fight.
Absolutely.
You know, but now we've got like a whole week, you know, a whole week of boxing where you've got the whole build up to the fight, which is great for the sport, don't get me wrong, but now everybody wants to have their say. You've got coaches, you've got managers, you've got the fighters, everybody wants to have their say. When, you know, the bottom line is it should just be all about the fighters.
But we're in a generation of YouTubers and whatnot, aren't we? So
we're in the business of entertainment, aren't we, now? It's a whole different ballgame. It's modern media against new media. That's why Jake Paul is such a phenomenon, because mainstream media and linear broadcasting is being challenged. And what people want is more content, more ability to discuss it from every single angle. They want to know the ins and outs of people's backsides because it brings views, and views bring money. And
numbers
money
don't lie, for sure. And if you look at the numbers and where they land with people like, look at the draw that Jake Paul is. You cannot deny what the kid's pulling in, and that's the difference now. Well, I think we're in a transition now where sort of boxing has become more entertainment, and that's why
all sports.
Yeah,
all
always
sports
said that, though, haven't we?
Yeah, all
You've got
sports
the
are the
fight game and you've got the fight business.
Yeah.
And sometimes the business side of the sport is very unattractive because you've got these guys coming in, these also-rans, and these young guys, the YouTubers, they're all coming into it now, all calling themselves boxers.
Look how many.
Wouldn't it be great though if they fought an actual boxer?
Mate, look how many good fighters today that we see that box at York all week in, week out, and they've got to pay for their opponent, and then they get 50% of the tickets that don't get because they've not got that ability to sell themselves, out-market themselves.
But that's the ecosystem, and they can have that ability because we've got a digital age now where you can promote yourself. You've just got to be a little bit more creative because you don't have to wait for XYZ broadcaster.
But if you ain't got that creativity, then.
Well, then ultimately, I get it, but then if you want to be something, you've got to do the very things that make you something. And in this day and age, you've got to be a little bit flash for cash, then perhaps you have to be.